we were talking about.
I think we were talking about Mort Will, that he didn't know him. That was the last
Mort Will.
conversation.
The Wills I didn't know very well at all.
Let's talk about the Walensky.
Yeah, Walensky had a pawn shop on Washington Street, and it had 3 balls over the pawn shop.
That was Alex.
Alex, and of course there was Jay, and what was his sister's name, Mort?
Diane.
Diane, and of course Mrs. Walensky. And Raymond, that's right, the younger brother. Forgot about Raymond. And my younger brother asked him one time, says, Mr. Walensky, what does the 3 balls stand for? He says, because there was 2 on top and then 1. He said, 2 to 1, you won't get it back. He was a little guy. And somebody a black guy tried to rob him in the store one time, and he actually fought him off. He said he fought with him until the guy got and left.
What I heard about Mr. Walensky was he was a very well-educated person in
jewelry. He may have been,
he
yeah.
Was actually he was a forest scribe.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I know one thing. When he came walking, he lived just 2 or 3 blocks from us. Came walking by one time on Newman with a cane. He was about 50 years old, and Pop, we were all working out in the yard out there on the weekend. He said, Alex says, what are you doing with the cane? He said, well, I thought when a man gets to be 50 and he's old enough, he needs to be walking with a cane. I tell you, it's amazing when you think about these stories about these people. There was such character, you know. And
well, what about the Taylors?
Well, I didn't, because I was young when they came here, and we used to go over they lived up on Adams when they came here, if I remember correctly. And then he died, I think, shortly. It wasn't too long after here. I think he died, and Pop took over his store, because he had a store next door. The store they had was a little bit bigger than the one he had on the square there. So we moved into that building, and then Elizabeth and her mother opened a ladies' shop over on Washington Street and did very well, very successful with them. That's right. And then Elizabeth married Dave Denbo later from Athens. Dave was really really nice person, yeah. And I think they did very well. I don't know what happened to the other 2 girls, but Serafina was the youngest, and that's when we knew the best.
And you had a brother named Irvin who became an ophthalmologist.
I don't know, I didn't know him much, but I didn't know a whole lot about them, but I knew Dave really better than any of them, and used to, Dave had a store in Athens, and Dad had a store in Athens too at one time. And they were next door to each other. So, but anyway, I'd gotten to know Dave, and then they moved later up into the mall. The mayor's shop, and we sold, I forgot about, what's his name? From, had a ladies' shop in Dunwich Mall.
Oh,
Rutenberg, Richard Rutenberg, isn't it awful?
Yeah.
Forgot about Richard, because Richard was from Gadsden. And every time I used to tell people, Richard bought my last store when I was trying to get out of the retail business. Bought my store at the mall. And I tell people whenever I'd see Richard, I wanted to hug his neck, get me out of the retail business. I had so much real estate, I really didn't have time to fool with it, And it was real estate was so much more lucrative than the clothing business. And,
Tell us a little bit about what you were into in the real estate. I know you developed several shopping centers.
Well, what happened, my brother and I had a store. We had this lady shop on the square downtown. I was a single man. And I just didn't feel like I was making enough money that if I wanted to get married, raise a family, that to take care of them like I wanted to. So I decided to build a duplex, trying to get a couple $100 extra a month. And so I started just looking around for a contractor and got to talk to this fellow. And he said, they really need apartments in Huntsville. So I thought, well, he's a contractor, I didn't. I was a retailer. I didn't know anything about building. So I said, well, why don't we form a little company and build some apartments? I said, we'll each put up $5,000 and we'll buy a lot and, see if we can build. So we went and bought a lot across from the funeral home, Laughlin Funeral Home there, except he couldn't come up with the money. So I asked Pop if he wanted to come in there with us. And we made a deal with the contractor. He'd draw a salary. Well, we built one building and put it up in 60 days, except I kept asking him, I said, shouldn't there be some plumbing in this building? And he said, oh, they'll get it in. Well, here we got tile walls in the bathrooms, kitchens complete. I mean, there's no plumbing, no rough-in plumbing, no. So we finally got a plumber to do it, almost didn't. And I thought, well, this is ridiculous. We forget to put the plumbing in a building. I mean, no sewer lines, no water lines, no nothing. So we finished that building, and of course, there's such a demand for apartments that people knew that I was going to handle, heard that I was involved, and they would come by the store and beg me to take a deposit and a month's rent to hold them an apartment. There was just 8 units in that building. Well, we finished that building, and I called him in one day, and his name was John Long. I said, John, we started the second building, rather. And I said, I don't know anything about construction. I said, you know less than I do. And I said, I think it's time for for us to separate. And he was nice enough. He didn't beat me up, I'll say that. He was capable. But anyway, and I went downtown and gave the city $50 or $100, became a general contractor. And I built apartments. I'd watch what they were doing, and I checked on subs. I had good subs, and the subs make the difference. Subs make the difference. I built 4 on that site. I later bought 3 buildings next door to that. Then I went down the street and bought 4 buildings. Then I built 4, 6, 7 buildings down the street and 6 buildings across the street. And then we got involved. What happened, my older brother and Henry Marsh and another guy, a third guy, a fellow named Blocker, were developing Sherwood Forest, the Sherwood Shopping Center, in that area, in the apartments and everything. And my older brother got into financial problems and bought him out, and his partner, and Henry Marsh became a partner with us. He was already a partner. And Marsh and us bought out the realtor, the other guy, and we operated Sherwood Plaza and Holiday Plaza. We owned Holiday Plaza until Marsh forgot to renew our land lease. And our land, and the people, what was their names? Jones, he was a partner with G.W. Jones. Used to be Jones, Blackwell, and somebody else. And they actually owned the land. And they just walked in and took it over, and we lost that shopping center. But we operated, and we did all right. We bought properties around town.
You're in the place there to Barry Berman, the
Yes, Barry rented out at Holiday Plaza before we lost it. Yeah, Barry, another good guy, by the way. Now, I knew his dad. His dad had a store in Alabama City, and Dad had a store. Arthur Berman had Arthur's on one corner, in Alabama City, and Pop had a store in the other corner. So he was an absentee owner, had a manager over there. It's in Gadsden. It's a suburb of Gadsden.
So you told me earlier that you had a good story about Sam Silver. You were saying that he had a store.
So he had a, I think he kind of had a, sold used clothing, I think. And Pop was in there one time, and he said he was listening to him talking to a customer. The customer says, "Mr. Silver, something smell. This clothing doesn't smell right." Mr. Silver said, "That's not the clothing. That's me." I mean, they could come. How these people could come up with these things? Let's
So
see.
I'd like you to tell me what you remember about my grandparents, me and Elsie Miller, and about my family.
Well, I know, of course, like I said, when your aunt died, I was just 4 or 5 years old.
Her name was Hilda Bernstein.
Hilda, that's right. Aunt Hilda, that's right. Hilda, that's right.
She died in 1934.
Actually, I think that was your grandmother's child.
Correct.
And but I don't know how old she was. You know,
18.
I knew she was real young, and it was a shame. And I really didn't know her much. And, but anyway, and of course, Bubba Mazza's family, the Mazzas owned that house.
That's right.
And they were renting. And then later on, they built down on Clinton, further down Clinton. And we used to go over and visit. And Buddy, your dad, could type like crazy.
Okay.
Oh yeah, he could type like crazy. And we were over there one time, and he had somebody visiting. He said, "You think I can type?" I said, "Watch this guy." I mean, he could. You know, who would ever think? You know, typing. But they were. But Harold and Buddy went to Castle Heights Military Academy, where they graduated, and they kind of. Buddy went into the was it B-12 program in the Navy, wasn't it? And Harold was drafted in the Army, and of course they would see each other, but I don't think they had they were close again. And you know, so many years, and just went their different ways. And Harold, meanwhile, Harold got married when he was 20 years old. He came out of the service and got married. He went in at 18, of course, at 2 years. And then I think that he went over and ran the store in Gadsden for a while. Then he came back to Huntsville and ran the store. And then, of course, Ronnie, my younger brother, he went to Huntsville High, went to University of Alabama Med School, and became an orthopedic surgeon. And he married a girl from Stockton, California. He was doing his residency at the Army government hospital. What is it? Veterans Hospital. Yeah, I think the way he met her, and you know, these things are kind of blurry.
Yeah. Well, you and Ronnie and I were all Capanews.
That's right. That's right. And Jay was too for a while.
Yes.
And Ronnie called me. What was this boy's name? His dad was a movie producer. You know, what was his name? He used to sleep on the ping pong table. What was that guy's name? A nut, you know.
Starts with an O.
Yeah. Oh, now Olinsky. What was his name? Ronnie called me up and says, "Norman," said, "this guy is driving me nuts." He said, "He is really on my back." So I went down and I called the guy aside. I said, "You don't get off my brother's back. I'm coming down and beat the hell out of you." And he never said another word to him after that.
He was a very statistical type.
Oh, awful. He was nuts.
He would get migraines, and he'd go down in the basement of the fraternity house and be there for 2 or 3 days with migraine headaches.
Yeah.
But he was mean, and in those days we got a little paddle for everyone, but he used a coat hanger. stretched it out and started hitting. And I remember when Norman came down to campus and told him, "If you do it again, you're a dead man."
There was something that you wanted to ask Norman about, and that was about the poker games that...
Did your dad play in the poker game with Abe Goldstein?
I don't think he played with Abe Goldstein. What happened after we closed the store on Saturdays, we all go to the Elks Club over on where is it? Madison Street. All go to the Elks Club. After the Elks Club was closed, we'd all go down to our house, and downstairs we had a bar and just people sitting around it. Some of the guys would play a little poker. I don't think Pop ever played with Goldstein, though.
Okay.
I don't recall him ever doing it. And they'd sit around and play down there. Some of the guys. I never forget that there was this guy from Gadsden. He owned a theater in Gadsden. He was down there, and he wanted to get up and get a drink. He said, asked me, I was a teenager, wanted to sit in for him. I said, sure. Well, I was betting his money. It was disappearing. He came back and he said, where's my money? I said, well, you told me to sit in. So.
Do tell us a little bit about your dad, though. I know he was active in the city.
Oh, yeah. Let's get to Pop a little bit, my family. And I told you about him going to Chattanooga. He and my mother, he married and he came here. And they built their home in 35. But Pop got very active in a lot of things. He was on the Board of Adjustment for 12 years for the city. And then Pop was also a 33rd degree Mason, and he was also, the way they got the Elks Lodge over here on Madison Street, when Pop was exalted ruler of the old Elks Lodge, which was downtown, the old post office, across from the Y, the Elks had accumulated $15,000, and they were going to buy and build a home someday. So a house came available over on Gallatin Street, and had a big lot with it. So Pop took that $15,000 and went over there and bought that house for the Elks Club. Well, some of the guys said, Abe Pizitz has thrown our money away. Well, 6 months later, Bell Telephone came in and asked Pop about buying that lot. They said, what do you want for it? He said, I want $30,000. And they said, but you only paid $15,000. He said, yeah, but I own it. So he went out of town to the Board of Trustees. They came back and made an offer of $25,000, and they accepted it. He said, why did you do that? He said, $5,000 didn't mean anything to Bell Telephone. Anyway, he took that $25,000. He went down on Madison Street and bought that lot. Then he went and did something that's never been heard of before. He got the Henderson Bank to finance a private club. Of all banks, if you didn't have cotton in the field, Henderson Bank wouldn't lend you money. That was the way they operated, you know. So, but anyway, and then he built that club. And later on, when he was elected exalted ruler again, and then when he ran for state president, he was elected president of the state Elks, and he built that home, that children's home in Montgomery for the kids, you know. So during his administration, he was also head of the Skies Wright Masons, all of them in North Alabama. He was, and let's see here.
He was involved with B'nai B'rith, wasn't he?
But oh yeah, he was B'nai B'rith. He was head of 8 B'nai B'rith in Huntsville, 8 years, consecutive 8 years. And he was on the committee that built the Shrine Home up on Pulaski. And he also was head of the Skies White Masons when he bought the temple on Bob Wallace. And he negotiated that for them. And the funniest thing though, when the Elks Club had slot machines back then, and a lot of the other private clubs in Huntsville had slot machines. And the sheriff had a man that goes around every month to collect money. Because the sheriff's job It was against the law, of course. It was illegal. But the sheriff's job was, if the state's going to raid you, then I'll notify you in advance. Well, Arthur McPeters, who I'll tell you about him in a minute, Arthur McPeters was the sheriff, and he was sending a man around to collect money. Well, everybody, all these clubs were giving him cash. Pop wrote him a check and wrote for Graff on the check. Get him a check. Anyway, when they brought him up for trial in Montgomery, Pop was the chief witness. But anyway, in the meanwhile, we had all these sheriff's deputies sitting in front of our house, hoping that they could find the slot machines, that they'd moved them from the Elks Club into our basement. But Arthur McPeters, can I say a little bit about him? Well, what happened in Huntsville, they had 15 guys running for sheriff. Well, Arthur McPeters was an illiterate farmer from New Hope. And the Manns and the Butlers were two of the prominent families out there. As a joke, they decided there were so many people running for sheriff, they just run him. So they bought him a pair of shoes and a suit, and they drove him around one of their cars. And he was one of these guys that he would speak, he was just naturally funny, just said funny things. Well, we had 15 guys running, so people would say, well, who are we going to vote for? Well, let's just vote for old Arthur. Well, old Arthur got to be sheriff. That's how he lost his job too, because Pop was the chief witness against him, because Pop had written him checks. Who else can we talk about here? Did we talk about Lawrence Goldsmith?
Yeah, we talked about him. What about Harry Damson?
Harry Damson was a nice guy and a good businessman. And he was just a good head. He watched the stock market. He played the stock market, which I don't think many people did back in those days. But he made a little money, and he was worth some money when he died, and Jerry inherited it. And Jerry was smart enough to he started off in the used car business, I think, with Arthur Cole. See, Arthur Cole was gotten in the used car business. And Jerry, of course, had used cars, and then he got into the dealerships, and he's done very well. Yeah. And I remember Jerry was a cute little old blonde-headed boy, and he was a little old guy, but he's done very well. And Harry Damson, his brother worked for him, actually. Joe Damson worked for him, yeah.
Where was Harry's store?
Right next to Pop's, right in the middle of the block there. On Jefferson, as you come off the square, you know where the Innocent Bank was, right down in the middle of that block. Pop's store and his store right next door to each other. And people would come in and they'd look in Pop's store and they'd say, well, this shoe is, it's higher than next door. And Pop said, well, why do you buy it then next door? They said, we didn't have my size. Pop said, well, I didn't have your size, I'll sell it to you for a quarter. These old merchants.
That an answer for everything.
I have to tell you one more quick story about Pop. There was a fellow who used to come to the store all the time, and he'd spend half a day going through everything, just looking. You've seen those kind of people. Looking. So Pop had a counter of men's summer pants. It was summertime. They were $4.95 a pair, just a whole counter, all sizes, right in front by the cash register where he stood a lot of time. And the guy's going through all these pants, and Dad says, how about selling you a pair of pants? He says, no. Dad says, sell you a pair for a quarter. Dad said, you sell me a pair of pants for a quarter? He said, yeah. He said, well, I think I'll take a pair then. So he got him a pair of pants, gave Pop a quarter. While the man stood there, Pop had a bunch of picture frames that hadn't sold. He had them stuck up under the counter there. He took one of those picture frames out. He's taking the back off of it. And the guy says, what are you doing? He says, you've been in here, coming in all this time, you've never spent a nickel. He said, I'm framing this quarter. I mean, you know, the stories that
The Boston store, was that Harry Danson's?
yeah, I think they called it the Boston store. I didn't call it Danson's. George the Boston store. I forgot about that. How do you remember all this stuff? How do you know all this stuff? Let's see.
He stays up late at night.
I Win. I Win, yeah. You remember I Win?
Yes, yes, I do.
That was, we could talk about I Win a little bit here.
Next door,
It was
several places, but I remember next door to the Mr. Lewinsky's.
But that was later.
Later.
That was later. They were around the corner, just right across the street from the Lyric Theater when I was young, and there was the older Mr. Wynn and Mr. Cohen, who was a partner.
That's Leo Cohen.
Leo Cohen and the Philip Wynn.
Leo Cohen, I think, was a brother-in-law.
I think he was a brother-in-law, right? Because when I'd go in and collect dues, he would write the checks for them, for both of them. And then Philip, after they both, Mr. Wynn and Mr. Cohen died, Philip opened a gift shop down a block down from there, across from Dunwood, kind of. And I didn't know much about him, but I used to go down and buy paper. An old thing we used to do in the rolls of paper, wrapping paper, there was two wooden knobs that the stick would go through the whole wrapping paper. And when you get through, we had part-time help sometimes. We said, if you take these around to our Wins, they'll give you 50 cents a piece for them. And of course, it doesn't sound like any money today, but people are glad that when you're working $4 a day, you know, you're glad to get that extra 50 cents or a dollar. They'd run around there, and then what was the boy's name that lived next door to Henry Foyer that died young? What was his name? His folks, his uncle had a shoe store down from Dunwood's there. What was his name? Upton. You got good hair. Upton. We'd send them around to Upton's time we need a wall stretcher. You know, wall stretcher. And all these merchants knew all these things. You know, they go along and they say, "Well, I lent mine to so and so." You know, lent mine to so and so.
So I guess there was pretty good competition among the Jewish merchants.
Well, it was. We were all basically selling when I say we, you know, they were all basically selling the same things, and it's just whoever the customer liked. That's what it really mattered to. And I remember we used to drive up to Shelbyville, Tennessee. They made fly overalls. That was the name of them. And Liberty, too. Well, Liberty, we used to go to Nashville, get Liberties. And, but it made fly overalls up in Nashville, in Shelbyville. And Papa would go up in his car and pick up some. And he went up there one time, and there was, of course, this two-lane winding road, if you've ever been that way. And he went off that road, turned over 6 times. And Sonny Stockton, you know, had Stockton Motors. Sonny was about 10, came flying down there to the house on his motor scooter. He said, Mr. Pizitz was had a terrible accident, and notified us. And he said he got killed. And evidently that's what he heard, you know, he got killed. So old Dr. Whitaker lived across the street, Mrs. Whitaker. We saw her and asked her to take us downtown to the doctor's real quick. We got down there, and there's Papa leaned up against the building smoking a cigar. He said, yeah, I turned over 6 times, but he said, I didn't get hurt. I mean, you got to live right sometime. What else have we got here, folks? Well, let's see here. Let's see, Belinsky, Wheel, Loeb. Loeb. There was a fellow named Loeb here, and I don't know his first name. His grandson lives here in town. She was not Jewish. He was. And he and Pop were good friends. They were in lodges together. And one time, Pop had 3 stores downtown, so one time Pop was telling him, he said, it's really a pain whenever we need something one store or the other, we have to go to the store, you know, to check on. He said, well, I'll put you in the telephone system. And he had these old crank phones, and he got us 3 of those phones and put them in. And 1 for one store, 2 for the other store, 3 for the other store. But Loeb Sig Loeb, who repaired, what was it he repaired downtown?
Radio.
Radio. Sig Loeb was his son. Then he had another son, Houston Loeb. And when we were kids, they lived on Wells and we lived on Randolph. And Houston and I were the same age and we used to play together all the time. And Houston's son is Mark Loeb, who lives over right behind PNC Bank. And he works for some company, but he also repairs vacuum cleaners and yard equipment, stuff like that. Does it on his outside there. Does all kinds of stuff like that. And he's very good at it. And he's a good guy. I really like him. And he does a lot of work for me. And I appreciate him. It's good to have somebody who can do stuff for you like that, you know. But his name is Mark, and Sig was his uncle. But Loeb worked for Bell Telephone. He was actually, I think,
was Sig's father.
yeah, was Sig's father, yeah. And if you ever saw Sig, Sig and him looked a lot alike. And now, Houston is the father of the boy I'm talking about. He died young. He wasn't very old. He died. But let's see, Goldsmith and Mary Shop. That's the Taylors. Louis Miller, of course. You know about him.
Active in the Helium Lodge.
Yeah.
Your dad.
Mm-hmm.
My grandfather was the treasurer of the lodge for about 30 years. I know your dad was worshipful master there.
Yeah. Yeah. Pop, like, he was a joiner.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a joiner. I like to go when I want to go, and but I think I've covered everybody I can think of.
What about
Bloom.
What about if we moved to when you and Velda got married, and some of you maybe up on their family now? Was that? Could you fill us in on?
Yeah. You had
Velda,
mentioned about Mark. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes I get a little emotional. Sometimes I don't. But Velda and I met Velda. She was working. She was the executive secretary for the manager of GE here when I met her. And she actually was born in Marshall County, but they had moved to Kansas, and she had come back here to work. And I met her, and in the late 50s, we got married in 1960, January 1960, and our son was born the latter part of that year, Mark. And then our daughter was born in 65, Rhonda, who is married to Michael Rodner. And
your beautiful daughter.
Our beautiful daughter.
She is gorgeous.
Yeah, thank you. I didn't want to say that.
Yeah.
But anyway, Mark was a very athletic kid. He played football, played baseball, basketball, tennis.
We played tennis together, you and I.
That's right, exactly. As a matter of fact, I was going to talk to you about that. Remember, you and I, the Overbeek boys, Overbeek brothers, who were a lot better players than we were, and they wanted us to play them doubles one day. Evidently, couldn't find anybody else. Well, Morty and I beat up on these two guys. I mean, beat up on them, and they were a lot better players than we were. But we really let them have it, didn't we, Morty?
It was.
We couldn't miss.
It sort of reminds me when Dick Lapidus and I were playing tennis one day, and there were two young high school kids hitting the ball like you see them hit. And Richard says to me, let's see if they want to play. I said, are you crazy? No. So we went over and played them, and we beat them. Because Richard could lob and drop shot, and they just couldn't put up with it.
They couldn't put up with it, that's right.
It was amazing, it really was.
I remember I played a guy at the university, and that's what I do. I just lob everything, and it just drove him nuts. Finally, he just walked off. He couldn't stand it any longer.
Well, we played several times together.
Oh,
many
yeah.
times together.
Yeah.
He had a funny way of holding his racket. And he got all this spin on it, but we enjoyed it.
Had one stroke, that forehand. That's the only stroke I had.
And no, that's okay. I just wanted
Yeah.
talking about Mark.
Anyway, Mark, of
How,
course,
what he enjoyed and what he did.
He-
What about Rhonda now?
Rhonda was also very athletic. In fact, Mark played soccer. And so Rhonda was probably the only girl at that time to play on a boys' baseball team when she was 10 years old. And we would go over at Mayfair Park. And what happened, Horton Smith's son and Rhonda were the same age, in the same class. And they didn't want to take her at the Piedmont team because she was a girl. So he got the coach at the Mayfair Park team he played on to take her in as a girl. Well, next thing you know, she's playing regular second base, And I'd sit in the stand, and the other families didn't know, because all the kids in those days wore their hair about this long. And they say, I could hear them say, there's a girl out there, but which one is it? 10-year-old girl, you couldn't tell. So, and the next thing, she'd get up to bat, and they'd tell, oh, throw it to her. She can't hit. She's a girl. She can't. Well, she'd knock it out of the ballpark.
Well, Rhonda blessed you with a little granddaughter.
I got a
I
little
have to ask you to describe her.
beautiful. She is redheaded and blue-eyed. I mean, and she is so active. So she's 2 years and 4 months. So we just can't believe that at our ages that we finally got a granddaughter. Rhonda was 50, I think 50 or 51 when she had the baby. She decided